A young boy rides a wooden toy horse to magically predict the winners of actual horse races. He secures over 80,000 pounds for his family. Then he collapses and dies in the night. This is the plot of The Rocking Horse Winner. Written by D.H. Lawrence in 1926, the short story uses the framework of a children's fable to dissect the shifting socioeconomic realities of early 20th century England. Lawrence places us inside a spacious home with discreet servants and a garden. The family maintains an expensive upper-class lifestyle, yet they lack the actual income to support it, creating a permanent state of domestic panic. To strip away the fairy tale facade, we must look through the mechanics of the prose, the psychological voids within characters, and the economic systems dictating their value. At this intersection, the text becomes an anatomy of a collapsing household. Lawrence used this story to dramatize the specific terrors of 1920s capitalism. The narrative begins by dismantling the traditional myth of motherhood. Hester, the matriarch, has beautiful children, but feels burdened by them. She harbors a hard, emotionless void at her center, driven by an obsession with material luxury. Her dissatisfaction manifests physically in the text. The house itself begins to constantly whisper, "There must be more money." This auditory hallucination acts as the inciting action that infects the entire family with anxiety. Recognizing his mother's misery, her young son Paul takes on the role of provider. He seeks out luck, which he interprets directly as money, to purchase the maternal affection he is denied. The family structure collapses into an economic model. Emotional connection is replaced by a one-directional transaction. Paul generates capital, Hester consumes it. Other adults, Uncle Oscar and Bassett the gardener, connect with the boy through financial utility, acting as enablers, not protectors. Bassett, a combat veteran of the First World War, treats Paul's ability to predict winning horses with religious reverence. He views the boy's knack for generating wealth as a divine gift, treating the child as a master to be obeyed. The plot resolves when Paul rides his toy horse into a final, maddening frenzy to secure a massive payout for his mother. He predicts the Derby winner, secures the fortune, and immediately dies from the physical and mental exhaustion. Lawrence presents a fractured unit where affection has zero value. The only recognized currency in this household is money. The academic Judith Halberstam defines the Gothic economy as a textual condition where the logic of capitalism transforms supernatural tropes into representations of market forces. Lawrence relies on this framework. He takes the traditional haunted house and strips away the spirits, replacing them with the pressure. It is a shared psychological panic demanding that the family spend beyond their means. We see this duality in Hester. To keep up appearances with the upper class, she secretly works drawing advertisements for luxurious furs and silks, participating in the very machinery of consumer desire that torments her own home. Within this environment, the concept of luck takes on a specific ideological meaning. It acts as a pseudonym for unearned capitalist wealth. Paul views luck with childhood innocence, believing it is a magical quality that makes you rich. Uncle Oscar understands the reality, referring to their winnings as filthy lucre, acknowledging the inherent corruption of state-sanctioned capital accumulation. Paul's ability to foresee winners mirrors the mystic invisible hand theory of classical economics. Just as Adam Smith's theory suggests an unseen force regulates the market for the successful, the characters treat Paul's gambling as a divine endorsement. They conclude that the market doesn't just move money, it chooses winners who are from heaven. The supernatural entity stalking Paul's home is the relentless, invisible demand of the free market. The central symbol is the wooden rocking horse. It is a mechanical, lifeless object that serves as Paul's solitary vehicle for generating capital. In Marxist theory, commodity fetishism occurs when a product is valued for its exchange price rather than its practical use, imbuing the inanimate object with mystical, powerful qualities in the eyes of society. Paul endows his toy with this exact power. He rides it in a frantic, aggressive motion, commanding it to take him to the luck. Yet, the horse remains geographically stationary. It rocks violently, but goes nowhere. Lawrence uses this localized movement to illustrate unproductive labor, work that generates financial returns but fails to satisfy basic human needs. Marx's theory maps Paul's alienation across 4 stages. First, he loses his product to his mother. Second, the labor process turns play into joyless exertion. Third, his human nature becomes a mere economic tool. Finally, he is alienated from others, totally isolated in his room. Stripped of childhood, relationships, and the fruits of labor, Paul becomes a pure mechanism of exploitation, valuable only for the capital he extracts. Through a psychoanalytic lens, the story exposes how economic pressures warp family dynamics, specifically through an Oedipal framework. Paul recognizes his father as a failure within the bourgeois system, a man with good prospects that never materialized. Viewing his father as unlucky, Paul actively seeks to usurp his position as the head of the household. To accomplish this, Paul must provide the specific resource his mother desires. He calculates that if he can secure enough wealth, he can finally win her validation and cure her unhappiness. Hester facilitates this dynamic. Her repressed satisfaction with her marriage and her inability to feel maternal love are sublimated into an insatiable demand for luxury goods and social standing. This pursuit causes Paul's physical deterioration. He slips into a hypnotic trance, his eyes burning with frenzy, bearing the crushing weight of his parents' consumerism. The family's psychological breakdown is the tragic result of a culture that measures a child's love by the thickness of his winnings. The narrative tension breaks at the climax. 2 nights before the Epsom Derby, Paul rides his wooden horse into a delirium, shouts the name of the winning horse, Malabar, and collapses into a fatal coma. Lawrence anchors this climax around the racetrack, using it as an arena of calculated risk and systemic exploitation. He hides a historical critique in plain sight by using the names of actual racehorses from the era. Paul's first winning horse is named Singhalese. His final winning horse is Malabar. Both names refer directly to regions of India actively colonized and managed by the British Empire. For decades, the British public and wealthy stockholders generated immense luxury by extracting labor and resources from colonial regions they had never seen. In parallel, Paul extracts wealth from a system he doesn't comprehend, gambling his life for the illusion of prosperity. Paul's individual collapse under the pressure of generating unearned wealth, acting as a direct mirror to the broader historical and economic exploitation executed by the British Empire. For university-level exams and essays, establishing these connections requires precise textual evidence. The recurring phrase, "there must be more money," is the central quotation of the text. By personifying the house with this demand, Lawrence establishes the mantra of the Gothic economy, proving that materialism has impacted the physical structure of the family's life. You must also look at the story's final lines. Standing over his dead nephew, Uncle Oscar says, "My God, Hester, you're 80-odd thousand to the good, and a poor devil of a son to the bad. But poor devil, he's best gone out of a life where he rides his rocking horse to find a winner." Oscar calculates the loss of a human life directly against a profit margin of £80,000. It is the cold endpoint of bourgeois logic, where even a son's death is settled on a ledger. If you are structuring an essay on gender or domestic roles, focus your paragraphs on Hester's subversion of motherhood. Map how she conforms to upper-class decorum publicly, while privately masking a total emotional void. If your prompt focuses on Marxist theory, center your argument on the rocking horse. Deconstruct it as a mechanical emblem of commodity fetishism and a literal representation of unproductive labor. In your writing, ensure that you connect formal literary devices, like personification or metaphor, directly to the ideological critiques of consumerism and alienation that Lawrence intended. The Rocking Horse Winner endures as a masterpiece because it identifies exactly what terrified the 20th century. The monsters hiding in the walls are the insatiable demands of the market.